Welcome to the Deep Dive, customized just for you. Today, we're plunging into a fascinating, really detailed stack of sources. They paint a vivid, complex picture of the entire UK agriculture sector right now. We're looking at radical national policy shifts, next-gen farm technology that's, automating decision-making in real time.
Yeah.
And the very real financial and regulatory battles farmers are fighting just to stay profitable.
It's a moment of profound tension, isn't it? The documents, they really reveal a sector grappling with immediate, often punishing financial pressures.
That's it everywhere.
Everything from sudden tax regime changes and uncertain subsidies to skyrocketing input costs. But at the same time, they're also having to plan for these radical long-term national sustainability goals.
That's the real balancing act.
This duality is, I think, the central theme. And then layered underneath all that essential planning is this surprising shakeup in the farm vehicle and machinery market. It speaks volumes about what farmers are actually prioritizing when they own their wallets.
Which seems to be
Durability and quantifiable value, real practical stuff.
Absolutely. So our mission today is ambitious. We're going to unpack the official roadmap that calls for nothing less than transforming the UK food system by 2050. We need to analyze the friction points that roadmap creates.
There will definitely be friction points.
We'll explore cutting-edge precision technologies designed to save soil health and, crucially, farm expenditure. We'll analyze exactly how farmers are navigating these challenging financial and regulatory headwinds, specifically the looming tax battle over commercial vehicles. That's a big one. And we'll celebrate some of the community successes that truly reflect the sort of cultural heart of the industry. Okay, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
We have to start with policy, I think, because the tone being set at the national level is, well, it's intense. There's a new major report, the Roadmap for Resilience, a UK food plan for 2050. And it calls for a radical transformation of the UK food system at a scale and pace not seen since the Second World War. When you use language like that, you are signaling this isn't just incremental change. This is like a foundational reboot.
That analogy to the Second World War is definitely deliberate. It evokes the last time the nation had to strategically, re-engineer its entire food supply system.
Right, a moment of crisis.
And the urgency today is driven by stark, multifaceted necessity, not just one single crisis. The report makes it really clear that delaying this overhaul isn't really an option anymore.
So immediate action needed.
Urgent action is needed now, they say, to reboot the flagging economy, to ensure national food security in what's clearly an unstable world, to meet legally binding climate commitments.
And the NHS link.
And crucially, to save the NHS billions in public health costs by improving the national diet.
Saving the NHS billions. That's a compelling argument. It brings the farm directly into the public consciousness, doesn't it?
It really does. But the warning is perhaps the most forceful part. It says if the UK doesn't willingly act now, change will be forced upon us through crises.
What kind of crises?
Whether that's food price shocks due to global conflict, supply chain collapse, or, catastrophic climate disasters hitting yields hard. Basically, act now or be acted upon.
Okay, so what's the actual plan? What are the core transformations they're talking about?
Precisely. If we look at the actual plan, it revolves around 3 core transformations, all designed to manage risk. The first is about fostering stronger, more resilient farming.
And what does that mean on the ground?
On the ground, this means financially supporting farmers to adapt to climate change, helping them diversify their businesses, maybe into renewables or agritourism, and critically shifting domestic production.
Shifting it how?
To grow significantly more fruit, vegetables, and whole grains. The aim is to actively reduce the need for increasingly expensive imports. The UK currently relies so heavily on imports for fresh produce, and that's a major vulnerability.
Okay, that's the first one. Stronger farming. What's the second?
The second transformation is where the policy gets, really radical. Smarter, more integrated land use. This isn't just about farm efficiency. It's about fundamentally altering the landscape balance.
Wow, so?
The goal is truly staggering. Expanding UK woodland cover from the current 14%.
Which is already quite low compared to Europe.
Exactly. Expanding that to at least 20% of UK land by 2050.
Wow. Let's pause on that 20% figure. That's huge.
Its magnitude really can't be overstated. That expansion requires turning over millions of acres of current agricultural land that's currently producing food to forestry or perhaps rewilding.
That's a massive trade-off.
It is. It also mandates restoring peatlands, which are massive carbon sinks, and establishing regional land use planning. This moves decision-making away from individual farm boundaries to a regional level, ensuring that land use decisions, whether for climate, nature recovery, or food, are strategically balanced across a wider area. This level of sort of centralized planning for land use is, well, unprecedented in modern UK history.
Okay, so stronger farming, integrated land use.
Yeah.
What's the third piece?
And the third piece, as you mentioned, directly addresses that NHS saving healthier diets made easier. This focuses entirely on the consumer end.
Right.
Aiming to make nutritious, sustainable food the easy and affordable option, while actively reducing the nation's reliance on high-emission and imported foods. They are fundamentally linking farm policy to public health outcomes.
Making the farm gate a factor in reducing diabetes or obesity. That's quite a connection.
Absolutely. And to achieve this seismic shift, the report proposes 10 priority actions for the government. If we connect this to the bigger picture, two really stand out for immediate political friction.
Okay, what are they?
First, placing food security on a par with energy security, making it equally essential to national security.
That feels overdue to many.
Perhaps. Second, setting clear targets for dietary change and, more sensitively, for livestock numbers. That's always controversial. They also call for the creation of a permanent National Food System Transformation Committee reporting directly to the Prime Minister. The idea is to ensure this long-term strategy isn't derailed by short-term political cycles.
That immediately raises the question of feasibility, doesn't it? And industry reaction, especially when you talk about setting dietary or livestock targets. We saw this tension play out after the E.T. Lancet Commission reports.
Exactly. The industry's response offers critical context here, particularly around sustainable red meat production.
So what's the NFU's take?
Well, the NFU's stance emphasizes that the British farming industry is already committed to world-leading standards. They argue it's globally recognized as one of the most efficient and sustainable producers.
So the argument is, don't penalize the efficient ones.
Essentially, yes. Their point is that while global meat production might be challenged on emissions, the UK is not the problem. To put a fine point on it, they cite data showing UK beef production emissions are, on average, half the global average.
Half. That's a huge difference.
An enormous difference, yeah. Driven by efficiency, better land management, feed quality, all those things.
So if they're already at half the global average, is the argument that further radical cuts here would be disproportionate? Or just push production elsewhere?
It is. The NFU argues that agriculture accounts for only 11% of total UK greenhouse gas emissions, which is lower than some other sectors. They say blanket reduction targets ignore efficiency gains already achieved.
So what should the focus be, according to them?
They stress that the focus should be on promoting balanced diets that prioritize high-welfare, homegrown food over potentially lower standard, higher-emission imports. Reducing domestic supplies simply pushes the problem, and the emissions, abroad.
And Quality Meat Scotland, QMS, they bring in the Scottish perspective, right, which is heavily influenced by geography.
Absolutely. They point out that Scotland's agriculture sector has already cut emissions by 13% since 1990. But the real immovable factor is the land itself.
What do they mean?
This is the crux of the geographic reality. They stress that a full 85% of Scotland's land cannot be used viably for cereal, fruit, or vegetable production.
85%? Why not?
It's often too steep, too wet, the soil quality isn't good enough for crops, so this raises a really important question. If that vast majority of land is unusable for crops, what can you do with it?
Livestock grazing.
High-welfare livestock grazing becomes the principal viable agricultural option. It's not just for food production, it's for managing the landscape, preventing wildfires, supporting biodiversity in some cases, and supporting the rural economy.
Right, the jobs aspect.
QMS stresses this sector supports 50,000 jobs and contributes £2.8 billion to the Scottish economy. If you dismantle that for forestry or rewilding targets, well, the social and financial cost to those rural communities could be immense.
So the challenge for this roadmap for resilience is huge. Ensuring national policy targets recognize these geographical realities and the high environmental standards already achieved by efficient UK producers, rather than just imposing a one-size-fits-all metric derived from global averages. The friction between that 20% woodland target and maintaining a viable livestock sector, especially in places like Scotland, is going to be immense.
It absolutely will be. And that pressure to radically transform land use while maintaining or improving efficiency, well, that's precisely why research into the very foundation of agriculture, the soil, has never been more urgent.
Okay, moving from that macro policy friction down to the ground level practice. There's a huge focus globally on soil health, regenerative agriculture, and finding hard scientific data to back up these practices.
Definitely.
This is where we see major research funding coming in, like the Trails 4 Soil Project.
What's fascinating here is the sheer collaborative scale of that project. It's EU-funded, 12.3 million, involving 22 organizations across 9 European countries.
And the UK's involved.
Yes, the University of Gloucestershire is part of it here in the UK. Their goal is profoundly ambitious. Find hard evidence, working hand in hand with farmers across 100 sites.
On what exactly?
On how regenerative and conservation agriculture truly impacts not just the obvious metrics like soil health and crop yield, but also farm income and, interestingly, farmer well-being.
That focus on income and well-being is crucial, isn't it? It acknowledges that practices, no matter how good for the environment, have to be financially sustainable for the farmer to adopt them.
Absolutely. And the urgency behind this initiative really speaks to the scale of the crisis we face. Over 60% of European soils are currently classified as degraded.
60%? That's shocking.
It is. And this degradation costs the EU economy up to 38 billion annually, mainly through reduced productivity, but also infrastructure damage from erosion, poor water management, flooding.
So getting solid, actionable, region-specific data is crucial for future stability. And proving the ROI.
Proving the return on investment for regenerative practices, exactly. It's vital.
And we see that same commitment to fundamental knowledge right here in the UK, focused on achieving net zero goals. For instance, in Northern Ireland, there's this AFBI partnership with Agricarbon.
Yes, for deep soil carbon stock assessment. It's a core part of the Northern Ireland Soil Nutrient Health Scheme. This might sound a bit bureaucratic, but the methodology is critically important.
How so? What's different?
It's the how that matters here. This work is filling a critical knowledge gap because they're sampling to a greater depth, 1 meter specifically.
On 1 meter. Most soil tests are shallower, aren't they?
Exactly. Traditional shallow soil tests might only go down 15 or 30 centimeters. Why is 1 meter important? Because carbon sequestration, locking carbon away, happens not just in the topsoil, but deep down into the profile over time.
Ah, I see.
If you only test the top layer, you miss the long-term sequestration picture. And that's vital for accurately assessing the true impact of low-carbon farming policies towards achieving net zero by 2050. Without that deep baseline data, carbon sequestration claims are just, well, they're educated guesses at best.
Right, you need the baseline to measure progress. Okay, now let's turn to the immediate biological threats farmers are facing, particularly arable farmers. Cabbage stem flea beetle, CSFB, it's caused a massive crisis in oilseed rape, OSR, production.
A huge crisis.
We've actually seen the UK shift from being a net exporter of OSR to a net importer. That is a brutal economic reversal.
That shift represents a huge loss in domestic self-sufficiency. OSR is such a vital break crop in rotations and a source of domestic oil and protein feed. Since the loss of effective chemical controls, those neonicotinoid seed treatments,
Yes.
the flea beetle larvae have just devastated yields in many areas.
AGDV is responding to this with its largest single investment in this area, the CSFB Research Plus project.
How much are we talking?
Total value nudging £750,000, running for nearly 5 years. That size of investment really reflects the severity of the economic injury this tiny beetle is inflicting.
So what specific solutions are being explored? Things that look beyond synthetic chemistry, presumably. They're looking at 3 main avenues. First, evaluating novel control products like biopesticides and nematodes, basically.
Right.
Biological agents that attack the pests naturally.
Okay.
Second, cultural control methods. This is about changing farm practices. Things like OSR stubble cultivation immediately after harvest to disrupt the soil-dwelling pupa before they emerge.
Makes sense.
They're also looking at using other brassicas as lure crops or trap crops, planting sacrificial crops to draw the beetles away from the main field.
Clever. And the third avenue.
Third, they're studying natural enemies, specifically parasitoid wasps like Microtonus brassicae. The aim is to understand and harness these natural biological control mechanisms already present in the environment. It's really a multi-pronged war fought on every front: biological, cultural, and genetic.
Another pervasive threat, especially with milder autumns, is barley yellow dwarf virus, BYDV. RIGT warns the risk is heightened because of these warm conditions.
And the green bridge.
Explain the green bridge again.
The green bridge just means there's plenty of living plant material volunteer crops from the previous harvest or weeds that survive between main crops. These act as a host for the aphids that carry the virus, allowing the aphid population and the virus to survive and build up before the new crop emerges.
Got it. But this is where genetics and technology converge for a very tangible financial win for the farmer, right?
Here's where it gets really interesting and practical, yes. The genetic solution is using BYDV-resistant varieties. For example, RGT Goldfinch, which is a high-yielding feed wheat candidate variety.
And there's a case study.
Yes, a Kent farmer, Richard Budd, trialed RGT Goldfinch. He found a quantifiable immediate benefit. He saved about $75 per hectare on insecticides.
Just like that.
Because he didn't need to spray to control the aphids that carry the virus on that variety, unlike with his other non-resistant varieties, which did need spraying.
$75 per hectare. That saving is significant when input costs are already painfully high, especially if you have a large acreage.
Exactly. But there's potentially a double benefit. On top of that, direct saving on spray costs. By successfully eliminating the need for insecticides on that crop, he could potentially claim the government's Sustainable Farming Incentive, or SFI, payment for no insecticide action, specifically the CIPM4 standard.
So it stacks up.
It potentially turns a strong agronomic outcome, disease resistance, into a major financial and regulatory double win. It makes the choice of variety highly strategic, not just about yield.
Speaking of agronomy and reducing chemical reliance, new machinery is being purpose-built for this shift, too. Vaderstad is rolling out a new front tool for its Carrier XT and XL disc cultivators.
Yes.
This isn't just a simple refresh, is it? It sounds like it fundamentally changes the way the machine works the soil.
It's very much a design response to the pressure to reduce or even eliminate chemical herbicides like glyphosate. The key change is significantly increasing the disc density. They've gone to 3 rows of discs, resulting in just 8.3 centimeter spacing between the discs. That means 50% more tools are actually in the ground, working the soil, compared to the previous 2-row version. The idea is that the sheer physical action of those extra discs achieves what chemicals previously did in killing weeds and creating a seed bed.
So how does that increased density translate to better weed control? What's the mechanism?
The goal is clear. Increase the cultivation performance, achieve exceptionally high weed killing rates by ensuring no plant is missed by the overlapping discs, and create better, more uniform, stale seed beds.
Stale seed beds. Remind us.
A stale seedbed is where you cultivate shallowly to encourage weed seeds near the surface to germinate early. Then you kill that flush of weeds with another pass, mechanically or chemically, before you drill the main crop. So the main crop gets a much cleaner start with less competition.
Got it. So more soil disturbance, less chemical reliance, maybe better moisture management too.
All potential results of this high-intensity physical mixing, yes. Better tilth as well.
And in the potato sector, which requires extremely gentle handling to avoid bruising, a major milestone was hit by Scott's Precision Manufacturing.
Yes, selling their 1,000th evolution separator since its launch back in 2005. That number really speaks volumes about the machine's utility and reputation in the industry.
What does it do exactly?
It's prized for combining gentle handling, crucial for potatoes, with effective cleaning and separation of clods, stones, and haulm from the crop as it comes out of the field, ensuring high product quality right through to storage or processing.
And speaking of industry recognition.
Separately, we saw KUHN being crowned Manufacturer of the Year at the British Farming Awards 2025. That reflects their sustained commitment to innovation across multiple sectors: tillage, seeding, livestock equipment, the lot.
Okay, finally in this section, let's look at post-harvest efficiency. Bottlenecks here can undo all the great work done in the field, can't they?
Absolutely. Getting the crop harvested is only half the battle.
Obrink Farm in Norfolk, a big operation, 11,000 acres, undertook a massive infrastructure upgrade, investing in a new grain drying, storage, and handling plant.
They added 6,600 tons of additional storage capacity, featuring a massive Svegma 54-ton-per-hour continuous flow dryer. That's serious capacity.
When you undertake a capital investment of that scale, the farm manager, Leopold Stolberg, had some advice.
Yes, invaluable advice for anyone else contemplating such a project. He stressed 2 things. First, don't rush the choice of your build partner. This relationship is multi-year and absolutely critical for success. Get references, see their other work.
Makes sense. And the second?
Second, check the progress daily during construction. Because what looks good on paper or in CAD drawings often presents different challenges in the physical reality of a large, busy working farm environment. Catching issues early is key.
So a huge strategic investment aimed at securing high crop quality and maximizing market flexibility by being able to store grains safely.
Precisely, reducing reliance on selling straight off the combine when prices might be low.
Okay, moving from that large-scale investment in physical infrastructure like grain stores to the next generation of smart automation. Livestock is seeing remarkable gains in precision feeding and health monitoring.
It really is.
Let's look at the Calf Expert system. This sounds like a highly hygienic, individualized feeding robot for young calves.
That's a good description. What makes the system stand out is its relentless focus on hygiene and the use of metabolic programming.
Metabolic programming, what's that?
It's the idea that early life nutrition, right from the first few days, shapes the calf's long-term performance, its health, its future productivity. Getting it right early pays dividends later.
And how does Calf Expert address hygiene? That's always a challenge with calves.
Well, traditional centralized milk supply systems where milk replacer is mixed in bulk and stored can see bacterial counts double really rapidly in that stored milk. That risks scours and illness. Calf Expert eliminates this risk entirely by mixing the milk freshly for each individual calf every single time they drink. It guarantees maximum hygiene and also a consistent optimal temperature, which calves prefer.
Okay, fresh mixing is key. And how does the metabolic programming work in practice for individual calves? Can it tailor the feed?
Yes, that's the clever part. It allows the system to adapt the milk concentration precisely over time. For instance, it might be programmed to use a high concentration, say 160 grams of powder per liter, early in life.
Why high concentration early?
To stimulate rumen development and maximize growth performance during those critical first few weeks, giving the calf the very best start. Then, as weaning approaches, it might automatically drop the concentration down to maybe 130 grams per liter.
And the purpose of dropping it?
That reduces the calf's reliance on milk and encourages intake of solid feed, easing the digestive transition and minimizing weaning stress. This level of precision aims to maximize both health and, ultimately, profit.
I appreciate the thought that seems to have gone into the workflow, too, addressing common farm challenges like crowding or bullying at the feeder station.
Exactly. The Quadriflex system, for instance, allows feeding up to 120 calves simultaneously across 4 separate hygiene stations. But the key piece of automation is the intelligent credit logic.
Intelligent credit logic, how does that work?
It ensures that if a dominant, faster-drinking calf finishes its allocated allowance early, it can't immediately go and hog another station straight away. Instead, all calves have a programmed feeding credit that replenishes at different intervals throughout the day.
Ah, so it prevents the bullies taking it all.
It significantly reduces crowding and competition, yes. It ensures smaller or more timid calves get their full allowance without being pushed out, and it keeps the overall environment much calmer. Plus, the system includes sophisticated practical features like automatic hose cleaning after each feed and frost protection for the pipes, making it truly robust for year-round operation in UK conditions.
Okay, if we connect this focus on individual animal data to the bigger picture of farm management, the development of digital twin technology sounds like a huge leap forward. SRUC's Dairy Research Center unveiled an open-source platform called Farm Twin.
This is truly revolutionary, I think. A digital twin is essentially a virtual representation of the entire farm operation. It's constantly updated using real-time sensor data from across the farm.
What kind of data?
Everything! Its core function is solving the problem of data silos. It integrates sensor data from milking machines, wearable health monitors on the cows, feed bin levels, weather stations. Even if those systems are from multiple competing vendors, it brings it all together.
So what does having this integrated virtual farm mean for daily decision-making? You mentioned predictive analytics.
Exactly. It allows the farm manager to move from just reacting to problems to proactive predictive intervention. The system can detect early, often very subtle, signs of illness or productivity drops long before a human might notice.
Could you give an example?
They gave a superb example. The system might combine subtle downward changes in milk yield trends over a few days with real-time activity data from a collar sensor showing reduced movement and maybe a slight temperature spike. It puts these pieces together.
And concludes
This cow is likely developing an illness, like mastitis or lameness. It can then automatically trigger a shedding gate in the parlor exit race
To do what?
to isolate that specific cow for veterinary inspection while simultaneously sending an alert notification to the farmer's phone or tablet via an app. This minimizes disease spread, maximizes early treatment success, and saves farmer time.
And the fact that it's open source, why is that important?
The open source nature is key. It promotes transparency. Farmers and developers can see how it works. It lowers barriers to adoption as there isn't a single company controlling it. And it encourages external developers to build new tools and applications for the platform, potentially accelerating innovation.
Okay, turning to the arable side now. The drive for autonomy means the high-power field tractors are getting bigger and smarter simultaneously. Case IH is doubling down on sheer output with the new Steiger 785 quad-track.
They are really maximizing the power density there. The new quad-track boosts peak horsepower by almost 10% to a massive 853 HP.
853 horsepower, that's immense.
It is. And that power is paired with an impressive 40% torque rise. That's the pulling power to handle larger, deeper implements or pull the same implements faster and more efficiently, covering more ground per hour.
And they've updated other ranges too.
Yes, they also address the workhorse segment with the new Optum Series tractors. Those now go up to 435 HP, boast a faster 60 kph transport speed to save time moving between fields on the road, and have an extended 750-hour engine service interval to keep running costs down and uptime maximized. Big focus on efficiency.
But the future zone is definitely autonomy and AI. Fendt's Future Zone showcase at Agritechnica 2025 gave us a preview of how that transition is happening right now, even in retrofit form.
Yes, they showcased the Outrun retrofit kit for their Fendt 800 Vario tractors. The key word there is retrofit.
Meaning you can upgrade an existing tractor.
Exactly. It allows an existing machine, one a farmer might already own, to be upgraded for autonomous operation, specifically for things like harvesting alongside a trailer, like a chaser bin driver, or for autonomous tillage operations like plowing or cultivating.
And the benefit there is mainly labor saving.
It directly addresses the critical labor shortage in European agriculture. It allows one skilled driver potentially to supervise multiple machines working autonomously in the same field, potentially running 247 during critical weather-dependent harvest windows. Huge productivity potential.
But the AI precision component for mechanical weeding sounds even more groundbreaking.
Yeah.
Fendt's row pilot system.
Yes, Row Pilot is an AI-based row management system designed specifically for mechanical hoeing implements. The real innovation here is how it sees the crops to guide the hoe accurately between the rows.
How does it see them?
Instead of relying solely on the color difference between the green crop and the brown soil, which is how older camera guidance systems work, Row Pilot uses the geometric properties of the plants.
Geometric properties, like shape.
Exactly. It analyzes leaf shape, the spacing between plants in the row, the overall size and structure. This is a huge step forward.
Why is it better than color?
Because color-based systems struggle dramatically in certain conditions. On slopes where the perspective changes, in fields with shadows, where young green weeds blend into the green crop, or the soil color, where the crop stand density is uneven. By using geometry, the AI maintains high accuracy even in these challenging field conditions.
Which means?
It allows mechanical weed control, physically cutting out the weeds, to truly compete with the efficacy and precision of chemical herbicide spraying. That's essential if we're moving away from chemicals, tying back to that policy pivot we discussed earlier.
Right, let's shift gears entirely now and look at the vehicles that actually get farmers and their staff around the farm every day. The UTV and ATV market, utility terrain vehicles and all-terrain vehicles.
The workhorses.
And we have massive news here, which I think signals a fundamental shift in buying habits, driven by utility, value, and perhaps a degree of pragmatism.
This is a landmark moment, really, one that few probably predicted a few years ago. CF Moto is now the UK's best-selling ATV and UTV brand.
Overtaking who?
Overtaking Honda. Based on the official Agricultural Engineers Association, the AEA, registration data from August 2023 to September 2024. For decades, Honda was pretty much synonymous with the UK farmers' quad bike market.
That's a huge upset. What does it tell us?
This data shows farmers are, perhaps overwhelmingly, prioritizing robust utility and competitive pricing from manufacturers who are traditionally considered, the challengers or the budget end.
So it seems like a market shift, where immediate value, the price tag, and the warranty perhaps, is trumping long-established brand heritage, possibly driven by the intense financial pressures the sector is under.
I think that's a very fair assessment, yeah. Meanwhile, the established players are adapting. Polaris, another major player, is adjusting its lineup for 2026. They're recognizing the trend of shared use on large farms or estates. They're introducing all-new two-up Sportsman models. These are specifically designed for comfortable shared riding, carrying a passenger safely, as well as utility work. And just to celebrate their long history, they released a special Sportsman XP 1000S 40th Anniversary Edition, nodding to their 4 decades in the ATV sector.
Okay, to give you, the listener, a real feel for these new machines on the market, we have some on-the-ground assessments from a farmer, Marcus Sutton. He trialed 2 key utility vehicles representing this shift. First, the Hisun electric UTV.
Right, the electric option. He was apparently highly impressed with the performance characteristics essential for farm work. The whisper quiet running is a big plus near livestock, doesn't spook them.
Yeah, I can see that.
The instant high torque from the electric motor provided great pulling power and responsiveness, and the suspension reportedly resulted in smooth handling even on rough ground. The core utility, the driving experience, was strong.
But there's always a but, isn't there? The devil is often in the details, specifically the cab ergonomics, things that make or break daily use. What were the drawbacks he found?
He critiqued several design elements that speak to daily functionality. The doors apparently felt a bit flimsy. The parking brake was awkwardly placed and difficult to engage quickly or confidently. The front window didn't open easily for ventilation, which is annoying during dusty summer work.
Yeah.
And the glove box was simply too tiny for necessary paperwork, tools, maybe a phone.
So their verdict was?
That the strong electric performance and quiet running were hindered by these minor but persistent ergonomic drawbacks in the cab design, things you live with every day.
Okay. Sutton also reviewed the AOD's 650 UTV. This one seems to represent the sheer budget workhorse segment of this market shift we're seeing.
It absolutely does. The AOD 650 is positioned very clearly as the lowest priced machine of its type on the market, just over £12,000 apparently.
And why is that price point so crucial?
Because it's often the price tag of a used, maybe high-mileage machine from one of the major established competitors. So you're getting a brand new machine for used money.
And what do you get for that £12,000?
For that price, it includes a full cabin with doors and a roof, heating, a decent 56 RP engine, and reportedly a good comprehensive warranty package, too. Sutton concluded it represents outstanding value against the used competition. It performed everything asked of it without complaint.
So this high value, maybe slightly less refined but brand new segment, is what's driving that sales shift away from the established higher cost brands like Honda and Polaris.
It certainly looks that way based on the sales data and reviews like this, yes. Value for money is king right now.
And value is about to become an even more critical calculation for farmers and small businesses because of a looming deadline for commercial vehicle tax changes. This affects every business that uses double cab pickups.
Which is a staple vehicle across agriculture and many trades.
Absolutely. So what's happening?
This is massive, and it kicks in from April 2025. The change is that double cab pickups, the popular ones with 4 doors and rear seats, will no longer be automatically classed as commercial vehicles for benefit in kind or BLIK tax purposes. They will be taxed as cars.
Okay, can you clarify for our listener what benefit in kind tax is?
Benefit in kind, or BIK, is basically a tax applied to an employee or a company director when they use a company vehicle for private journeys commuting, often counts as private use too. Commercial vehicles, like vans or traditional single-cab pickups, historically attracted a fixed, low BIK rate because HMRC saw them primarily as business tools, not perks.
So if these popular double cabs are suddenly classed as cars from April 2025, what's the financial pain point for the user?
The BIK tax on cars is calculated based on the car's list price, P11D value, and its CO2 emissions. For a high-spec, modern double cab pickup, which can easily cost £40,000, £50,000 and have relatively high CO2 emissions, this calculation means the annual BIK tax liability can soar.
By how much?
By hundreds or even thousands of pounds annually for the employee who drives it. It makes them potentially prohibitively expensive as a company vehicle compared to before. This legislation change forced manufacturers to react immediately to protect their commercial customers who rely on these vehicles as tax-efficient workhorses.
And the most prominent specific solution we saw flagged in the sources was the new Isuzu D-Max V-Cross commercial model.
Yes.
That name isn't just marketing fluff, is it? This vehicle was engineered specifically to get around this tax change.
It absolutely was. Isuzu essentially went back to the drawing board with their top-spec V-Cross model to ensure this specific variant retained full commercial vehicle tax status even after April 2025.
How do they manage that? What's the loophole or rule they used?
By ensuring the vehicle's physical characteristics meet the strict legal definition of a commercial vehicle. Critically, this involves ensuring it has a payload capacity of at least 1 ton, 1,000 kilograms, even with the double cab configuration. They likely had to remove the rear seats or make other modifications to achieve this payload rating on the V-Cross commercial variant.
So by meeting that 1-ton payload rule, what are the tax benefits?
It means that for this specific commercial version, the VAT remains reclaimable for VAT-registered businesses, a huge saving up front. The road tax remains fixed at the lower commercial vehicle rate, currently $345 a year. And, most critically for the employee, the benefit-in-kind tax is kept at the fixed, lower commercial vehicle rate, expected to be 4,020 Ps for the 2025-26 tax year, regardless of the vehicle's potentially high list price or its CO2 emissions.
So it's presented as a specific, targeted, tax-efficient alternative for SMEs and farmers, allowing them to mitigate this new, costly legislation, even if they want the premium features of the V-Cross model.
Exactly. It allows employees to have the higher spec truck, leather seats, infotainment, etc., but crucially keeps that personal tax bill manageable by ensuring it qualifies as a commercial vehicle in the eyes of HMRC. Other manufacturers will likely follow suit with similar commercial specification models.
Okay, shifting now to the financial stability and sort of human resilience side of agriculture. We have to look at the crucial regulatory relief secured by the NFU through some strong and proactive campaigning against government delays recently.
Yes, they achieved 2 really critical wins that immediately put certainty, or in some cases, direct funding, back into farmers' accounts. Vital breathing space.
That was the first one.
First, securing the rollover of existing countryside stewardship mid-tier CSMT agreements for over 5,000 farmers.
Why was that so important?
Had they failed to get this rollover agreed, those farmers would have faced a potentially devastating funding gap. Their existing agreements would have ended, but the new Sustainable Farming Incentive, or SFI, scheme options that replace them weren't fully ready or open for applications yet.
So they would have lost payments.
They could have lost a whole year's worth of stewardship payments. That funding gap could have cratered cash flow for thousands of businesses, especially those relying on those payments to fund vital conservation and environmental work mandated by the schemes.
A really crucial win then. And the second?
The second win was securing more flexibility and clarity for the seasonal worker scheme, the SWS visa route. Specifically, ensuring growers have the certainty needed for the 2026 visa allocation well in advance.
Why is early certainty needed?
Because planting decisions for many horticultural crops, which rely heavily on seasonal labor for harvest, are made many months, sometimes over a year, ahead. Knowing they'll have access to the necessary workforce through the visa scheme is vital for their planning and investment. It helps minimize reliance on unstable overseas labor markets or illegal workers.
Right. But despite those crucial regulatory wins, the sources say confidence across the sector remains, and I quote, rock bottom.
Yeah, that phrase came up.
The NFU is pleading with the government to address the deep uncertainty, especially concerning the future of the family farm tax. Specifically, potential changes to inheritance tax, IHT, affecting agricultural property relief, which were hinted at in last year's budget but haven't been clarified.
And this uncertainty, the NFU argues, directly impacts national food security. It sounds like a leap, but the logic is sound.
Explain the connection.
Farming businesses are incredibly capital intensive. They require constant, often multi-million-pound investment in the new machinery, the digital twins, the green storage we've just been discussing. If a farmer fears that future IHT changes will make it impossible or vastly more expensive to pass the family farm intact to the next generation, what do?
They hold back on investment.
They immediately cut investment. They hold on to capital. They don't buy the new kit. They don't upgrade the buildings. The NFU argues this deferral of essential modernization, driven by tax uncertainty, is actively risking future efficiency, future productivity, and ultimately future UK food supplies.
And the financial instability extends beyond just immediate IHT fears, doesn't it?
Yeah.
NFU Mutual data highlighted another potential future target for the Treasury.
Yes, pension tax relief. Their data shows that around 70% of the total cost of pension tax relief in the UK benefits higher rate and additional rate taxpayers.
Making it look like a perk for the wealthy.
Potentially, yes. And this large expenditure by the Treasury makes high-earner pension relief a strong potential target for reform or clawbacks in the upcoming November budget, especially if the government needs to raise funds.
And for successful, long-term farmers.
For many successful farmers who've built up their businesses over decades, Pensions represent a key retirement planning vehicle and also a tax-efficient way to extract profits. So this adds yet another layer of financial instability and uncertainty on top of everything else they're juggling.
Okay, on some positive political news, though, we must recognize Alistair Carmichael, MP. He chairs the Commons DEFRA Committee, and he won the NFU's Farming Champion of the Year award.
Yes, well-deserved recognition, it seems. He earned this for being a consistent and vocal advocate for the sector, particularly for challenging the government publicly and persistently on the economic and moral justifications for changing the family farm tax structure, the IHT reliefs.
And for championing food security.
And for continuously advocating for the strategic importance of domestic food security in national policy discussions. Recognition like this shows that farmers still value political champions who actually understand their concerns and translate them into real-world questions and actions in Parliament.
Okay, moving now to animal health. A survey by the Wales Veterinary Science Centre brought up a surprising, maybe alarming finding in the sheep sector, specifically regarding internal or iceberg diseases.
Yes. The key finding was that a huge majority, 74% of sheep keepers surveyed, admitted they do not routinely screen their flocks for common iceberg diseases.
What are iceberg diseases?
These are things like BYDV-resistant, MV, or John's disease, ovine pulmonary adenocarcinoma, OPA. They're chronic slow-burn diseases that often hide below the surface, hence iceberg. They erode flock profitability over years through poor performance before maybe causing catastrophic losses like abortions or deaths.
And that 74% figure for not screening is staggering, especially when you consider that almost 47% of the survey respondents reported production losses or abortions in their flocks in the last year.
Exactly.
And thin ewes were reported as a classic symptom, which often points towards these chronic diseases. So why is screening so low if the disease impact seems so high?
Often, farmers might perceive the cost and time involved in blood testing or screening as unnecessary, especially when the symptoms are initially vague or intermittent, maybe just a few thin ewes, slightly lower lambing percentages.
Things easily blamed on other factors.
Exactly. Blamed on nutrition, the weather, fluke. But because iceberg diseases typically show these vague symptoms initially, proactive, routine screening, testing a sample of the flock regularly is absolutely required to identify carrier animals before they infect the entire flock or before losses become severe.
So the message is?
The experts stress that improving flock profitability, especially with tight margins, means managing these endemic chronic diseases through knowledge gained from testing, not just reacting to the obvious acute losses when it's often too late.
Okay, finally, we see the dedicated human element of animal welfare highlighted in a successful rescue operation down in Devon, involving some rare Icelandic horses.
Yes, this sounded like a really complex, long-running multi-agency collaboration. It spanned 15 months.
Who was involved?
It involved the Mare and Foal Sanctuary, World Horse Welfare, and the RSPCA working together. The operation successfully rescued 70 rare Icelandic horses and foals.
What was the situation?
They were reportedly suffering from severe welfare issues arising from neglect, things like unmanaged breeding, leading to fighting amongst colts, and life-threatening health problems like dangerously high worm burdens. It really highlights that specialized equine welfare work requires incredible sustained dedication and resources.
Especially with rare breeds.
Especially when dealing with rare breeds like Icelandics, where responsible assessment, treatment, rehabilitation, and eventual rehoming is essential not just for the individual animal's welfare, but also for the genetic preservation of the breed.
And the success of that rescue, supported by other charities providing transport and rehoming assistance, really highlights the sheer dedication and teamwork needed sometimes to address these complex welfare situations. It brings the community together for the common good.
It really does, and that spirit of community and perhaps that conscious connection to the land and the animals is mirrored in the cultural traditions we saw documented as well. You had the Pembrokeshire Harvest Celebration held at St. David's Cathedral, contrasted with the Scottish Harvest Thanksgiving service up at Crathie Kirk near Balmoral, which was attended by the King and Queen this year.
What's the significance of these events?
These events serve to unite farming organizations, rural communities, and the wider public in a shared moment of gratitude for the harvest, reflection on the year past, and perhaps an acknowledgement of the unique stewardship role farmers play in managing the countryside.
And this cultural thread, this sense of stewardship, runs deep, doesn't it? It seems to feed directly into the philosophy behind some of the regenerative practices we discussed earlier.
I think so. We saw the concept of farming being described almost as a pilgrimage, an act of patient, long-term stewardship that demands close observation and working with nature, not just imposing upon it.
And that ties into...
It ties into philosophical ideas, like those of someone like Rupert Sheldrake, about the inherent intelligence of nature, linking those perhaps ancient rhythms and intuitive ways of farming to the modern science-backed regenerative practices. The idea that the farmer must first observe and understand the land before acting effectively upon it. #outro.
Wow, we have covered a huge amount of ground in this deep dive. From the necessity of radical policy transformation requiring things like 20% woodland cover and difficult changes to livestock targets, and the breakthroughs in AI-driven precision agriculture like the digital twin platform, seeing the farm virtually,
Yeah, incredible stuff.
to the sudden financial realities facing family farms due to looming tax changes, creating real uncertainty, and that unexpected victory of CF Moto in the ATV market, seemingly driven purely by value.
The core consistent message that really emerges from pulling together these diverse sources is, I think, the vital link between deep knowledge and future resilience.
Knowledge in what sense?
This knowledge can be scientific, like AFBI's 1-meter deep soil assessment giving a true carbon baseline, or the specific genetics of BYDV-resistant saving farmers' spray costs. Or it can be digital, through the predictive power of those digital twins integrating masses of data.
And it's not just about tech.
No. We've seen that critical transformation requires not just new technology, but also new thinking, maybe a more conscious connection to the land, viewing farming, as we just touched on, as an act of dedicated, long-term stewardship.
And achieving that national food security goal that started our discussion, well, it seems to mean setting clear, quantifiable targets for things like land use and even national diet.
Difficult targets politically.
Very. While simultaneously creating a stable and predictable financial environment where farmers feel confident enough to actually invest in the next generation of automation, storage, and soil health practices, rather than holding back capital because of paralyzing tax uncertainty or volatile subsidy schemes.
Which raises a really important final question for you, our listener, to consider. Given this significant policy push toward integrated land use, like that mandated 20% woodland cover and extensive peatland restoration, alongside the continuing industry reliance on achieving high-efficiency, sustainable production, where will the necessary political and financial compromises actually be found?
Compromises needed to successfully implement this roadmap for resilience.
Without inadvertently creating a new, perhaps existential crisis for the very farmers who are expected to deliver it all on the ground.
A question that really defines the economic and social landscape of UK agriculture for the next quarter century, I think. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.